Martial arts are codified systems and traditions of combat practices, which are practices for a variety of reasons: self-defense, competition, physical health and fitness, entertainment, as well as mental, physical, and spiritual development. Alright, so in the following clips, I'm going to get very angry and explaining something I've explained many times in my videos. Every time I explain it, I do it slightly different, but it's to the same message. I take a slightly different angle. Yeah, so basically, to make a long story short, my argument is sparring is part of the codified tradition of determining what your martial art technique is lacking, what your application is lacking, so that when it's time for war, you are prepared. So to prove who is the top martial artist without fighting to the death, practically, logically, fairly, and traditionally, sparring is used. Now, I do not have anything against any race. I realize that some races, are less physically inclined than others, and that's, on average, and that sparring is, and that martial arts cover a wide variety of races and ethnic groups and religions, pagans, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and so on and so forth, and that this is a very sensitive topic. I appreciate that a lot of people are trying to market their, boxing and wrestling and, UFC fighting and MMA and so on, and all the equipment that comes with it. There's a huge market for these things, and part of its appeal is convincing people that this is how you're a tough guy or you're the best fighter and so on and so forth. And there are certain agreements between different martial artists to not talk about their martial art as being the best, though some do anyway. But from my point of view, because I've been denied, what made it easier for me to do this, which I probably would have done anyway, is that I've been denied my rightful place in the world. I constantly talk about fighting for honor, okay? Being recognized as a transcendent hero is part of my African tradition. So an Igbo wrote this book. His name is Obi, an Igbo name, T.J. Dush Obi. Talks about Biafra. That's the flag I have, my ancestry. I'm also half white, and I'm also part Semitic. I don't have anything against the people who are disproportionately global oppressors, specifically whites, Jews. Okay? I don't have anything against them as far as a people, as a race, how they look. I actually think a lot of white women are attractive. A lot of Jewish women are attractive. I was, back in boarding school, I was in a little crew. We carved things on our arms, and in it were, 1, 2, 3 white guys, a Jew, and me. So I really have nothing against, these people. I have everything against oppressors, okay? When I'm doing this, I'm not going to think about who is going to get the short end of the stick when I do this. I'm thinking about the truth. I'm not trying to make anyone look bad, and I do kind of feel bad for making people look bad, but this just doesn't change the fact. Because you people are doing this a certain way, the top martial artist, in reality, is being shunned. You understand me? True martial arts and their significance have been downplayed in favor of fucking entertainment and sport. And men in tights and Marvel fucking movies and shit. It's a disgrace. It is a disgrace. When you have someone who's a good-looking, smart, educated, degree-holding, top martial artist who is shunned in one of the most populated countries in the world, why they have this huge market for martial arts, in the sports world and the entertainment movies and so on and so forth. It is a fucking disgrace. Pretty much every martial art dojo should hold their head down in this situation. And when I'm being persecuted for my political views when God chose me, oh man, you can imagine. Now, if you people do not understand, I hold human life is not only precious to me, it is sacred. My religion is not only precious to me, it is sacred. By the way, I replaced this flag in the background. It used to have little stains on it. This is a brand new flag. Just want to point that out. kind of feel myself as well. Anyway, you know, it's sacred. The reason why I pointed it out, because I was talking about sacred, and flags are symbols that some people hold sacred. Anyway, so when somebody comes in your temple and pisses all over the place and throws paint all over the place, for example, the natural human reaction is to be upset. You have violated my sacred place. You have violated my temple. Us Christians believe that our body is our temple as well. Jesus said, I will destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. He was talking about his body. He was talking about him. He's going to die in 3 days. He's going to rise again. We believe our body is our temple. So when I'm being covertly drugged by a bunch of pseudo-scientific racists, I tend to get upset and want to yell. When I'm talking about how I'm a warrior being shunned, I tend to get upset and want to yell. And when I talk about it for a long time, I tend to get mad. And when you people keep doing it every single day, well, then I tend to do it every single day. Because these things need to be discussed, they need to be addressed, and I won't be silent until these things are effectively, thoroughly, and definitively addressed. So yes, this is going to be a long video. Yes, there's a lot of anger. Yes, people are going to take offense. You know, I personally like watching sports. I was a fan of Ali and Tyson, somewhat of a fan of Mayweather. I don't like that he's so cocky and I could beat the shit out of him in a fucking no time flat, and he's a cocky fuck with a bunch of money who's getting celebrated as some kind of tough guy when I could fucking just murder him in about 0.1 seconds, you know? Yeah, it bothers me. You know, I could quickly just fucking step fucking dead, you know? No time. All right? And they have these little sissies on TV, man. Sissies. You know? And then I see even politicians are talking to them. Politicians talk to these people. I'm the political guy. I'm the most politically oriented martial artist on the planet and the top martial artist in America. But you don't see me getting any kind of forum to fucking discuss my views because they're the truth. But all these controlled opposition sissies who sold out to the fucking aristocracy, they can yap up a storm on fucking CNN and RT and so on and so forth. But do I get a fair shake? No. They have taken what is sacred and pissed on it, and they have denied me my fair shake, my rightful place in the world, which would have saved millions of lives because I would not have shut up. I would have kept saying, hey, there's 65 million people dying every year. I would have told these people on TV, I'm ashamed of all you people being human beings just like me. How dare you people be silent? I would have told these presidents, how dare you let these people die? How dare you bitches I would have been at the UN saying, you're all fucking guilty. The politicians, big conglomerates, corporations, transnational fucking businesses, all you motherfuckers who exploit the workforce, who kill innocent people with eugenics, and I will not be silenced, and I will not sit down. But they denied me my rightful place. Okay? Now, there are other things that are important in life. Love, family, art, history. You know, let's say for the rest of the eternity, black people were always the top martial artists, which is a good chance it would be the case if people saw martial arts for what they really are and black people started returning to the roots and getting interested in it. You know, there's still other things for people to excel in. People can become some form of transcendent hero by inventing cures for diseases. They can show the beauty of their people and their culture, their food, their tradition, their history, their specific forms of martial arts. Just because somebody isn't as great of a martial artist as I am, doesn't mean they shouldn't be interested. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be proud of their people. That's not what this is about. I'm not bashing, you know, whatever martial arts your people do. You know, Mongolian fucking combat. I'm not bashing these people. There's martial arts, then there's other forms of combat, such as modern warfare. You know, if you like modern warfare better, you know, so be it. But historically, spiritually, Martial arts played a key role in human history and development. And for me to be shunned by a bunch of spiritual fucking bottom feeders who want me to be silent and take drugs that fuck up my martial arts, violate my religious freedom, violate the sovereignty over my body, violate my constitutional rights, for a bunch of covert drugging cowards to deny me the ability to save the fucking world, when spiritually, metaphorically, I am Horus, the transcendent. God chose me, and if you do not come to that conclusion by the time this video is over, then you're a stupid, ignorant, imbecile, idiot bitch. So a lot of people don't understand sports and the difference between martial arts and combat skills and so on. Even the gis I wear tell the tale of my philosophy, you know, if you pay attention. And they say freedom fighter, and you know, so when you try to compare actual martial arts to sports or entertainment, you know, it's really foolish. You know, a lot of people get stuck in that trap where they can't see the difference. And you know, martial arts, when you go back to the definition, you know, they're codified systems of combat. You know, and not combat for sports, because you know, people will use the term combat loosely. But combat really means, you know, as I've shown you, you know, you feel me with what's on the wall, right? Okay, you see the horse with his blade, you know, spears and stuff, and the leopard for certain combat skills and so on, and you see the Kinga with a ceremonial blade, knife, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you'll see me in my videos. I'll do super fast knife strikes, and you'll see wooden swords. You'll see plastic swords, okay? Because I train transferable skills. And everything I focus on, you know, I don't focus on, you know, skills for entertainment, skills for sports competition. I focus on martial arts as a form of combat, okay? And so when you look at sparring, right, a lot of people don't grasp this. Sparring shows you transferable skills. It shows you martial art principles, you know, weapons forms and weaponless forms. Okay, weaponless forms. You know, the stances are similar. The dodges are similar. The blocks and so on have similar techniques. I talk about the knife edge, you know, of your chops and things of this nature. The vulnerable points of the body are similar. You know, you want to hit in places, you know, there's pressure points and there's organs and there's certain things that you target, arteries and so on and so forth. And, you know, and other things, you know, I really don't want to get into detail with that because it's pretty gruesome. But, you know, I think a lot of people, when it comes down to it, they simply don't understand what I'm talking about when I say I'm the top martial artist. The first thing, you know, and part of it is the movie's fault, you know. The movies do show you what martial arts really are, as far as, you know, giving you a movie kind of an example, where you'll see, you know, Steven Seagal do whoop de whoop bam bam, he'll, you know, bashing someone's head in, or using a bottle real fast, or you'll see different martial artists using their environment, using certain skills to overcome guys. You'll see them taking on huge guys. You know, if they were to step in the ring with these huge guys, you know, perhaps they might not do so well. But when it's actual combat on the streets, you know, and they're using their environment, you know, they outmaneuver them and they beat them, you know. So we look at sports, a lot of times they'll match people by weight classes and things of this nature, you know, and they do that for the reason of, you know, for sports competition. It's not actual combat. In actual combat, someone like me has the upper hand by a long shot, you know. But at the same time, you know, when you actually go to martial arts classes, pretty much every martial arts, you know, karate, taekwondo, kung fu, they always have weapons forms as well, and your stances are the similar and so on and so forth. So what are martial arts really? You know, they're the use of transferable skills. So what does it mean to be the top martial artist? It means you have the best set of transferable skills and you're the best at sparring, you know. And what does it mean to be the top at self-defense? It means that you're ready for practical combat. You know, combat against the knives, right? Combat against sticks and bottles and what have you. Okay, self-defense, street combat, combat skills, fighting skills, hand-to-hand combat. You know, and so one of this guy from the gym, from AKA, you know, he didn't realize why he lost the debate. He kept going, or he just wanted to save face or something. Where I pointed out to him, I said, look, you know, I was trying to explain to him the concept of transferable skills. I didn't use that. I said, well, you know, you need the same skill sets. I didn't use the word transferable skills, but I was explaining it to him. I said, you need the same skill sets in sparring. You know, to look at sparring as a game of tag or touch shows an abhorrent lack of insight. You know, there's a reason why all the top masters spar. There's a reason why all the most valid combat schools include sparring. You know, even the Navy SEALs, I've seen videos on YouTube of them sparring. Because there's nothing like training for combat. You know, there's no better way to train for actual combat than to spar. It's the most practical, logical, straightforward. There's no way to truly understand what you lack than to spar. You know, for example, if you make beginner mistakes like you don't keep your hands up, you know, if you you know, that's your style, right? You get tagged in the sparring match, and at the same time in a real fight, if you don't keep your hands up, you know, you get socked in a real fight. You know, if you don't understand how to block and maneuver and dodge and so on and so forth. So what sparring actually shows you is that in most situations in actual combat, who would win and why? And it goes back to insight, understanding, maneuvering, dexterity, agility, technique, all these things, all these principles that you need. You know, these are key principles in actual street combat. You know, and I use the example many times where I say, you know, there's a thin line between this and this. Okay, so when, you know, say I put on a glove, right? I've explained this many times. My viewers are probably bored of hearing it. But as long as the opposition view keeps hiding behind this argument, I'm going to have to keep explaining, okay? So notice I did it with my bare hand. I did it with a knife. Now let's see this kind of blow with the glove on. Okay, you see that? Thin line between those three things. Okay? What does it mean? Well, it means that with that same kind of movement, the same kind of principles, had I had this knife in my hand, I would have stabbed you in the neck. It's a serious blow. If I was setting myself up for a fighting bout, you know, and I started a series of blows, it would have mattered in a regular fist fight as well. Okay, busted lip, knocked out tooth, broken nose, stunned long enough to go bow, and then you know, and so on and so forth. You know, and then so what would happen with a stab? You would have been stabbed. So you would have been scored on, hit, stabbed. It's the same concepts. Now, let's say that, you know, somebody's a real big, strong guy. If you're open to being hit by a little guy, there's a fair chance that a big guy can hit you in a real fight the same way. So what happens when somebody who hits like Tyson, you know, exposes that weakness in your defense the same way? Bing! You're probably laid the fuck out, right? So even if you had a knife in a street fight, and you're fighting again, this guy's like, I don't give a fuck, he puts on his shirt, he's just pumped up, right? And you swing and you block, pow! He just lays you out, boom, you laid out. It didn't matter if you had a knife or not. You see what I'm saying? So you need these skills, you know? And when we reach a point in martial arts where it's been so misrepresented that I actually have to explain to you the painfully obvious, you know something is extremely wrong here. You know, when the true top martial artist has to hold your hand through common sense, really. You know? I mean, think about what I just explained. Why should I have to explain that, you know? Why do I have people from the UFC camp, you know, arguing with me about that? Because UFC it's sports. It's martial arts, the sports application of martial arts. Not combat application, not self-defense application. It is the entertainment/sports application of martial arts. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that until part of your marketing plan is to sell it as if your the highest level of competition, as if one of you is the top martial art. Then it's disgusting. Then it's just absolutely appalling, you know, because these people would get killed with fighting. You know, the competition. You know, that challenges me for being the top martial arts. None of them are UFC fighters. Okay, they're fighting for, you know, who has the UFC championship, Ultimate Fighting Championship. I mean, it's misleading. Okay. You know, and what would happen, you know, in a fight where these people try to, you know, take me down, right? Try to take down someone quicker than you, who quickly, you know, who have a problem, okay, in a street fight, and I'm not thinking, you know, I'm gonna fight you, you know, in a way that the UFC does. I'm thinking, well, now we have a problem. Well, we have a problem. Now I'm the top martial artist with a fucking, and now I have a knife in my hand. You know, you might be dumb enough to try me still. You know, and it's just a dumb idea. And say it doesn't even have to really come to that, you know. But boom. Now it doesn't matter who you are, you know. Fabrico, Verdun, whoever. You know. So it's an idea where for you to make your UFC applications, you know, training applications work, you're relying on somebody who doesn't actually understand combat. All right. Now I'll make one more example and I'll wrap it up. Okay, we'll look at a military, you know. Does the military necessarily train UFC kind of combat? Yes, to a certain extent. But what is the most practical military training of combat? You'll see knife combat. You know, one of the special forces uses Filipino knife martial arts, right? Okay, something that is completely unaddressed by UFC training and, you know, right, and UFC application. Completely unaddressed. Okay, so there's parts of martial arts that have to do with combat that the UFC doesn't even train at all. So what happens when somebody who's trained in Filipino knife fighting, you know, Filipino martial art knife applications, comes across a UFC fighter and he pulls out a fucking knife? You know, it's not fucking pretty. You know, I put my money on the knife fighter over somebody who knows how to take down, you know, any fucking day. So then how are they going to defend themselves? Does UFC truly teach self-defense at that point? No. Because they don't even know how to defend themselves from a knife. You know? Do they teach any kind of weapons, disarms? You know, they're missing some of the most important components of martial arts. So then who does? You know? Now I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to leave with this last point of the last thought. Okay? For the same reason I could score on that knife fighter in sparring first is the same reason I could stab him first. So if a Filipino martial art knife fighter pulled out a knife and I pulled out a knife, you know, I would put the money on me every time. You know, there's a very small chance that I'm going to lose. You know, I'm going to poke him full of fucking holes. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of cute tricks he knows. At the end of the day, for the same reason he couldn't do little cute hand tricks and cute, you know, maneuvers to avoid being scored on, is the same reason he can't do cute little knife tricks and cute little maneuvers to avoid being stabbed. You know? So, what do you learn in this lecture? You learn that UFC is entertainment/sport martial art applications. Sparring shows you who is the top martial artist, and because of the skills you need for fighting, combat, and self-defense. Okay? Period. So, you know, there's only one thing that people, you know, will try to argue, which is pretty much irrelevant when you truly think about it. They'll say, well, what about your ability to hit hard and to take a hit? Now, when you look at actual sparring, okay, when you look at martial arts and how it's made, right? For the same reason some geek who can't hit hard isn't going to be good at sparring is the same reason why those points are a moot point. Okay? You know, to become the top martial artist at sparring, you have to have built your body up to a certain point where pain is your middle fucking name, pretty much. You know, your endurance training, whatever you do, your physical conditioning, you know, you've trained yourself to endure a certain amount of pain. And there's certain places where you're stabbed, for instance, that nobody is, you know, above going down, you know. So yes, there is an aspect of some people hit harder than other people. There is an aspect of some people can take a hit better than other people, you know. But when it actually comes down to the overall picture, you know, the overall picture of who's the top martial artist and how do we prove it, those things become small issues compared to the more important issues of surviving a knife fight, avoiding a bottle to the dome, you know, avoiding the key to the fucking eye, and so on and so forth. You know, avoiding a fucking, you know, blunt object to the head, a tire iron, a crowbar, you know, those become moot points, you know. You see what I'm saying? It becomes being fast and getting to the target. Remember, Bruce Lee said the best fighting technique is a direct technique. Well, I'm out of time. So I tried to explain to you, you know, a little bit about why, you know, in part one, the first clip, why it doesn't make sense, their argument of, you know, that sparring is a game of touch, or who can touch who first. You know, that is like saying, well, you know, when you shoot it out in the battlefield, it's a game of, you know, who can touch who first with a bullet, you know? And what does that prove? You know? It's a very silly mistake to make. For example, in sparring, you have two gloves and then you have two sparring shoes, right? There's a thin line between that and someone pulling out a knife. Now he has one knife, he has a fist, he has 2 feet, he has a head. So you're aware of all the things that they can use to cause you harm. Just like in sparring, you're aware of all the things they can use to score a point on you. You know, when you truly analyze what fighting really is, fighting is avoiding connections, avoiding impacts. You know, to truly break down what fighting is, avoiding impacts. Okay? And when you make it about sports, you add an element of chokeholds and twisting the ankle and twisting arms and, you know, whatever. You know, twisting wrists or whatever they do. Okay? Now, you know, when you're in a bar fight, for example, you know, and somebody could, at that point, apply the UFC fight skills to win that bar fight, you know. He could, you know, a couple blows are thrown, he takes him to the ground, boom. You know, he chokes him out, or, you know, he twists his arm, he breaks his arm, or, yes, you could use those things. You know, my argument isn't, it's not even my argument, it's just the facts. The facts of the matter is, I'm not saying that you can't use UFC's fighting skills to beat people up, because you can. I'm saying the highest form of combat, the highest way to, the best way to show who's the top martial artist is sparring. Now, there's going to be certain groups of people that don't like this, okay? Big fat people probably aren't going to like this because it exposes that, you know, they may come off as intimidating. They may come off as more intense than smaller people. You know, for the same reason a fucking hippo is more intense than a mouse or something. But they don't necessarily have the upper hand in hand-to-hand combat when, you know, really, it's really warfare. You know, it's really warfare versus sport. Warfare versus, you know, a physical altercation. You know, there's differences here. Martial arts is not the art of who can win a fist fight, you know, in the club per se. Though you can use it for that. That's a potential application. It's not the art of who can impress somebody by having the best form. Though that is an application of it. Martial arts is combat and self-defense. When we look at Shaolin Kung Fu, right? The Shaoxi Force, I brought this up hundreds of times in my videos. They developed Shaolin Kung Fu to defend the monks. Okay? And there was people from the military who helped them come up with the forms. Now, were they coming up with it so they can impress women? Did a bunch of monks come up with Kung Fu so they can impress some fucking chicken-head Babylon slut? Of course not. That's preposterous. Did they come up with it so they could do, you know, have little sporting events and look cool? No. They didn't. Those Shaolin demonstrations came later. That's not what they came up with it for. That's not the purpose of martial arts. You know, martial arts are the amalgamation, the combination, the integration of spiritual concepts and hand-to-hand warfare and primitive warfare and hand-to-hand combat warfare, sword forms, knife forms, nunchucks, spears, butterfly knives, ball and chain, you know, close combat, warfare. You know, do two UFC fighters get in the ring and do they go to war? No. You can put it that way, but it's not truly what it is. They get in the ring and they compete in a sport event where they have somebody come in and check on them and so on. You know, the doctor says, hey, he's through. You know, we're here for a sport. We're not here to kill somebody. You know, we're here to see who can, you know, follow the rules in a certain way and harm the other person better than that person. In actual warfare, okay, there is no rules. You know, if I want to stab you in the fucking dick, in the gut, in the neck, the carotid artery, go that side. You know, it's all fair play. If I want to hit you in the dick, poke you in the eye, it's fair play. You know, and so on and so forth. If I pick up a fucking plate and I bash it on your fucking head, it's fair fucking play. If we're in a fight in a battlefield and we come in with swords and bling bling, I stick my sword in someone else and your sword breaks or something, and now we're down to daggers, okay? And bling, and we're fighting and our daggers cling up, and I pick up a rock and bash you in the fucking head. It's fair play. If I take a broken piece of glass and I slit your fucking throat, it's fair play. There's a difference between actual combat and a sporting event. So when I'm saying I'm the top martial artist, these are codified systems of combat traditions, combat, warfare. Okay, these people trained to defend themselves from bandits. They were applied in warfare. So when you say who's the top martial artist, who's the best, who has the best set of skills for actual self-defense, hand-to-hand combat, warfare, okay? When they cannot defeat me at sparring, that means they would lose at warfare. And when I was taking it personal how this white society, you know, white and Jew run society was shutting me, and they started making these eugenics arguments of superiority, you know, that made me, it was one point when I was inclined to bring it to another level. I said, you know what? For the same reason I'm superior to your race, you know, my race is superior to yours, the same reason I'll beat you at this. And if you want to talk about genetic components for behavior, well, guess what? Fighting, you know, fighting is a behavior as well. One that our ancestors held with the utmost respect. So when you wanted to take that angle, I could have easily, and I did at one point, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna back off that because I'm not going to go down to sink to their level, you know, because that is, you know, that is pretty much racism, the biological racism, scientific racism, because martial arts are a form of science, and when you actually do the research with an unbiased, balanced mind, as I have, as a biracial person, you come up with Africans, you know, came up with martial arts. And that's why our bodies are a little bit more, you know, a little bit better for martial arts. You know, and you could argue that Europeans, for example, they started wearing heavy armor, and so it fed into their kind of lumberjack or their kind of big, bulky, you know, kind of like a big oaf, you know, like a big biker or something. They're not necessarily coordinated, but they're big and strong, and they can haul heavy loads and dump, you know, some, you know, those guys from Iceland or something, those Iceland giants or something. They have a documentary on Vice or something like that. You know, there's these big oaf guys. But they're not necessarily good for actual combat killing without heavy armor. And, you know, they'll fight each other with big old battle axes and, you know, big broadswords, you know. The weapons also tell a tale about the body types of the people who use them. You know, with the Chinese, you'll have a lot of these Chinese swords that are one-handed swords, right? They're one-handed swords. They're quick swords. You know, this guy who's kind of short, he uses his body, whips it around. You know, he can cut upwards, cut down, can block with it. You know, okay. Europeans will have these broadswords, and they'll have a lot of two-handed broadswords as well. You know, for this bigger guy, just whoosh, you know, whoosh, and have length on it. So when they're fighting a smaller guy, it's harder for that smaller guy to escape the range, you know, of the range of motion. Sheesh. He'll come down with a shield, blink, you know, bang. So even if you have armor that is heavy, long broadsword, boom, knock you over. And there's boom, blunt force, as well as a certain stabbing capability. You know? And they'll ride on their horse as well sometimes with a big broadsword, bam, and so on. And then they have spears, right, for the range combats. The weapons also tell you something about how body types play a role. Weapons, the body type of a weapon, or the make of a weapon, the construction of a weapon, you know, the aspects of the weapon tell you something about how it can be used, and so on. You know, see, with a Tai Chi sword, they try to use the principles of energy. You know, it's not as sharp as other swords. It's pretty, for most intents and purposes, it is dull. But you hit people certain points on people, you know, and you concentrate your chi through the sword to the tip. So there's a lot of religious principles with martial arts. And when you look at the samurai sword, right, it's a two-handed sword that was designed after these certain agricultural or farming scythes or something, I forgot what they're called, where they chopped up the weeds, and they did it with a certain motion. So when they made their sword, they did it with the same motion. So you can see a little bit of the people and their body type and their lifestyles and their religions in the weapons. And that's what you see with the Crusader sword, right? You see the people, their body type, you know, these big, bulky Crusaders, you know, some of them, you know, were, and these kind of shorter, strong guys as well. And they'll have their religious symbols in the sword, right? And so you see the same thing, you know, with capoeira, with the, you know, with that instrument they play, I forgot what it's called. They play the instrument, they'll play the drums, and this shows you, you know, and they'll do the kicks, and you follow it back to Angola and so on and so forth. So you see in this history of, it all has to do with combat. You know, these people weren't concerned with forms per se. You know, if imagine a whole army they just cared about doing forms and not actual combat applications. You know, their enemies would laugh at them. These pretty boys are only concerned with looking good. We're going to slaughter them. We're going to decimate their ranks. You know? So to me, it's rather sad that people don't understand that how serious martial arts is. Martial arts is a very serious thing. And then people have gone certain ways with it to look pretty. You know, you see gay guys concentrate on form and shit, little sissies, you know, females doing martial arts and trying to make, you know, trying to play into their gender feminist bullshit, okay? And I'm not saying the females couldn't kill a man using martial arts. In fact, they could, if they understood the proper combat applications as opposed to, you know, entertainment or demonstration applications, you know? But the bottom line is that the reason why I'm the top martial artist has to do with modern day self-defense, has to do with me training actual combat warfare every day for 20 years, with a few exceptions when I used to be a drunk and, you know, for certain periods of time, okay, but for the on and off, but almost steadily, with a few breaks, if you will, a few cooling off periods. I hate to compare it to a serial killer. But yeah, you know, it is very fucking sad, very, very fucking sad. You know, that this thing is so important. I mean, people used to pray to their gods. You know, they would pray to their gods before battle. They would say, "My gods are greater than your gods." And then they would take these swords into battle, crusades and in pagan battles and pagan tribes, and, you know, Visigoths, Scythians, and different peoples and their different gods, Greeks and Romans. They would pray to their gods of war and so on. And then they would go to battle. I mean, this thing goes deep. The reason why martial arts is not a sport, when you're actually talking about martial arts, you're not talking about a sport application, but martial arts. This thing is deep. This thing is deep. People killed each other believing that their God inspired them to do greater martial arts than their enemies, to do greater combat arts than their enemies, and then they would conquer them, and then they would say they would offer, make an offering to their gods. I mean, this thing goes deep, and you'll see mental health twisted. They'll say, oh, this guy thinks that he's connecting with God. Bitch, that is human nature. That is exactly human nature. That's what humans have been doing for as far back as before even recorded history, as far back as anyone remembered. That's when you truly think about it, that's part of being human. Before technology starts twisting your mind about what your nature really is, it's human fucking nature to a T. When I say I'm the top martial artist and God chose me because my religious perspective is superior to yours, that is what people have been claiming for thousands of years, if not tens of thousands of years. And to continue where I left off, and they're right. Look at the Bible. The tale of Joshua, right? The tale of David and Goliath. Okay, these things had a certain divine inspiration. They're part of a greater plan. Right? Right? The Jews invading Canaan. If you truly interpret the Bible, the Old Testament correctly, what they're saying is that these people, this was part of God's plan. So their war arts prevailed because God chose them. So there's different elements to consider. One, strategy, speed, physical contact, and then there is God Almighty. And you see the same thing in the Zulu movie, In fact, I'm going to stop right there and make another clip to demonstrate that. Okay, obviously, I'm acting for this part, and this is for the purpose of you understanding what I mean when I say that there's a spiritual connection to weapons making, blessing the samurai sword, blessing spears, why the spears were made, how they're made, and so on and so forth.
As you possess this blade, it will possess you.
So be it.
The spirit of the blade speaks.
No. The spirit of Shaga speaks.
So be it, son of Zulu. Take this spear, and with it, let the sun cast your powers to the ends of this earth.
Now are you idiots starting to get it? I have people from mental health tell me that they don't understand why I behave the way I do. Well, newsflash, you people don't understand the nature or the nurture part of the debate. It is human nature to do that. No aliens came down and said, we're going to do this. Naturally, humans felt inclined to be spiritual. They are innately spiritual. They are inherently spiritual. They are naturally spiritual, and they were seeking out God in a higher power and using it for every aspect of life, giving thanks for the harvest, etc., including warfare. Okay? So all you sissies are going to say that I have delusions of grandeur or some mental health bitch shit like that, when the fact of the matter is that this is exactly who we are. We are people who respect transcendent heroes and see them as having gifts given to them by God. That's why they give offerings, because people are thankful for the gifts that nature and God and the spiritual world has given them. So we are naturally people trying to connect with something supernatural, if you will. Even that word, right? Supernatural. So to me, it's very disgusting. Of course a transcendent hero is above some rich idiot. Of course a transcendent hero is above some smart idiot. So these people who made it their philosophy to, value intellect over superstition, when they're too clever by half, they don't know the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and so on and so forth. It's just pathetic. Pathetic. And the same reason, these are the same cowards who would argue on the behalf of, the UFC and them. They're only concerned with image and bitch shit. They say, well, these people are in our pocket, so we're going to argue as if they're, you know, the top martial artists or something. How dare he say that? Why doesn't he join the sports competition that has little to do with actual fucking warfare? You know? Why doesn't he enter that? What are you, fucking stupid? You know, you may as well ask me, why don't I play with fucking dolls to prove that I'm the top martial artist? This is not a fucking game. God chose me, you fucking cowards. Not any of you. And traditionally, historically, how you prove it is sparring. Combat traditions. Say it with me. Combat traditions. Let's put the tradition back in combat tradition, or else you're talking about something else. Not martial arts, which are combat traditions, codified systems. Were they doing UFC competitions in the Shaoxi Forest? Were they doing them in Africa? No. Were they wearing fucking tights and pretending they're superheroes in Hollywood and shit? No, 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 and no. There was no Captain America in fucking Asia, the Middle East, Africa, or medieval or primitive or ancient fucking Europe. Martial arts have always been for the purpose of actual combat. And sparring has always been how you see what you need to work on to be effective in actual combat. And so you work on hitting the tree. You hit the fucking cowhide, the animal hide. You work on dexterity, agility. You work on the things you need to be effective in combat. Or you just shut the fuck up. You don't pretend that you're the top martial artist. You fucking sissies. You show and prove. And when you make such a claim, every insightful martial artist on the planet knows damn well the relevance of it. It is not just saying, I have mastered this skill set that nobody cares about. It is saying that God chose me and gifted me with the skill sets I need to be the top martial artist. The mental skills, the physical skills, and the spiritual prowess. The spiritual acuity. The moral longevity. Martial artists don't win by cheating, by lying, by hiding, by covertly drugging. That is bitch shit. You want to be the top cheater? You know, that's your fucking problem. But don't ever twist, don't ever confuse being the top cheater with the top martial artist. Don't ever confuse a liar's opinion with an expert's opinion. All you sissies in mental health lying up a fucking storm. Fucking cowards. Weaklings. Pussies. I took my chi energy from God, and I cast my powers to the ends of the earth. And I'm the top martial artist in this land. And make no mistake, had I been given a fair shake, had they not targeted me with psychiatric abuse, covert harassment, government stalking, covert drugging, and more, I could have been the top martial artist in the world on record. And now we'll never know. I could be right now, but we'll never know, will we? Because your fucking ninny, sissy American fucking government has cheated yet another black man and kept him from proving the greatness of the black race. So that they can turn around and say these are inferior people and make them and their sissy fucking kids feel better about being fucking pussies and weaklings. Fucking idiots. And you see, I would love for them to watch this whole video through. Every clip, there's like, what, 4 clips? Every clip all the way through. Then you tell me why I'm wrong, you fucking cowards. Better yet, go on TV, address my video point by point, and tell me why I'm wrong, you fucking pussies. You all know I'm fucking right. That's why you wouldn't dream of doing it. Because part of your marketing scheme with this fucking sports shit you do on TV is to trick people into thinking that it is something more special than it really is. I understand that. But your fucking marketing plan, you know, your greed is not as important as preserving codified systems of combat and spirituality, not to mention history. Your greed isn't that important. I hate to break it to Dana White and all you sissies. What you're doing isn't that fucking important. That the most honorable of men should be fucking silent and pretend that you're fucking right. You little weasels. Anybody with a fucking brain knows that in a fucking heartbeat I could kill any of your fighters in a fucking real match on the fucking streets when transferable skills can be applied with no fucking rules. There's no rules on the battlefield. You kill the motherfucker. And as soon as they started coming out with, you know, muskets and fucking heavy armor and blah, 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 we went out of the age of martial arts combats in battles, and we entered an age of fucking heavy infantry and muskets and guns and so on and so forth. That's something else. You have to make the distinction. And then you have a bunch of sissies, you know, different races. I'm not going to say who they are. They think it is not fair for me to declare the truth that I'm the top martial artist and then I put all this money out there. They say, well, it's not fair to these people or those people. You know, because God didn't choose your race to be fucking fit for actual martial art application, combat applications and sparring. I'm supposed to accommodate that. I'm supposed to pretend that I'm not right or some bitch shit like, what you're doing isn't fair. Shut the fuck up. It's because I could cut your fucking heart out before you could fucking blink or lay a finger on me. You know? Because God chose fucking me. And if God didn't, then who the fuck did? Why are things the way they are? God chose me to be the top martial artist, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out why. Because you're all a bunch of disingenuous, liar deceivers. Deceivers. You're cowards. And you wonder why God didn't choose you? Because you're a fucking pussy. Because you're a faggot sissy. The fuck do you think? You didn't have the heart to do what I've done. You are bootlickers. Can you imagine? Oh, Lord help us. Can you imagine if God chose a fucking conformist coward from controlled opposition movement to be the top martial artist? Oh, wow. You know, I do not doubt the fucking judgment of God for a second. Because I see why he's done everything. He's allowed all the greedy motherfuckers to have their little bitch ass, you know, their little kicks for a little while so they can burn in hell with the rest of the idiots who took that path. Who don't understand the difference between wisdom and knowledge and sacred truths, which go hand in hand with wisdom. Knowledge doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with wisdom and sacred truth. Because knowledge can be used by deceivers to deceive instead of by honest men to do the work of God. So knowledge means fucking nothing, just like money. It can be used by good people, it can be used by bad people. So whoever has the most money, so fucking what? It doesn't say anything about what kind of spiritual being you are, it doesn't say anything about your true worth. I even put in a way that you cowards can understand. It doesn't say anything about your esoteric fucking value. Application, motherfucker. Your application of knowledge is inferior. The people who you look up to, their application of martial arts is inferior. You sniveling opposition view cowards are inferior. And that's supposed to mean I'm supposed to lie and make it seem like that's not the case? You don't deserve anybody to lie for you. Lying is a despicable behavior. I don't think anybody deserves that. Certainly not you conformist cowards. It's not fair. God chose me because it is fair, you fucking idiots.